Hey everybody, you're listening to Sit Down with Stand-Ups. My name is Ari Azizian, and my guest today is the very, very funny Adam Hunter. Adam was a finalist on Last Comic Standing. He's been on a Late Late Show, Chelsea Lately, Comedy Central, and a couple appearances on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. He hosts an MMA podcast on Fox Sports called MMA Roasted, and he has two great comedy albums called Being Adam Hunter and Inappropriate, which are absolutely hilarious, and you should definitely listen to both of them. And without further ado, here's Adam Hunter.
You look overhaul. What you won't never seen before. Riding in the glazing. You know what get paid.
I started doing comedy when I was 20 years old.
Okay, cool.
And then they used to have like these guys, Danny and Jody Wasserman and Danny Cohen, used to run these crazy shows where they had like three shows. One was in a laundromat, another one was in a supermarket, and the other one was in a Krispy Kreme donut shop.
Oh my god.
and sometimes it was really funny. Hold on one second. Hello?
So you said there was one in a Krispy Kreme?
Yes.
Yeah. And how did those all go?
Actually, the Krispy Kreme was rough because I think homeless people found out there was a comedy show there, and they all came for the free donuts because they were giving out free donuts. And I think someone threw a donut at one of the comics, and then and they kind of canceled that show. The laundromat was really funny. There was a guy named Andrew Donnelly who was a really funny comic, and I remember
Does he do Archer? Is that
Andrew Donnelly? Does he?
I heard the name.
He's really funny.
Yeah.
I remember him one time. He was doing comedy at the laundromat, and he goes to the dryer, and he goes, "Let me put this on No Career," and then changed it to No Career. That was like my favorite joke I ever heard in my life.
That's so great.
Yeah.
We had one of those in San Francisco, and it was just like chaos. Like
Yeah. Actually, I had a show called Kamikaze Comedy, where comedy people were not expecting it, and it was like a derivative of that, where like it was comedy. Like it wasn't so much like those people. They knew there was a show at the laundromat, a supermarket that was like 9 o'clock. Spin Cycle Comedy, I think it was called.
Oh, sweet.
But this one where we just basically ambush people with jokes.
Oh my God.
We tricked them into hearing comedy. So like we went to the hood and put sign saying free tacos. So all these people showed up to get tacos. Instead, they got comedians telling them jokes through the intercom. So like I always find that really funny.
That's so cool.
When the audience is expecting one thing and they get jokes.
Oh my gosh, Kamikaze Comedy?
Yeah.
That's so great. Was there another one where you would went and just like ambush?
We did a lot of them. We did one where went to a golf course and in the middle of people tried. It was actually like the Korean Golf Open or something.
Yeah.
And me, Bert Kreischer, and Ben Glebe were just telling jokes to people while they were trying to play golf.
That's so great.
And one time I actually ran up in the middle of a driving range and I was like, stop. And then I prevented them from, I started telling them jokes while they were aiming golf balls on my head. Yeah.
That's so funny. That's so great. And so you were there when you were 20, you started, and how long was it before you came to Los Angeles?
I did in comedy for, I think, like 7 years in New York.
Cool.
And then came out to LA.
What do you think's like the big difference between New York comedians and LA comedians, if there was one?
I feel like New York comics are more joke-driven, and LA comics are more performance-driven.
Okay.
More act-outs and jokes, more like characters on stage.
Yeah.
Whereas New York, it's like I think the writing is a little tighter. You know, a lot of people, they stay in New York and you just do 20-minute sets. Whereas, you know, I think the best comics are when like best is when people are like headlining. You know, but
Right.
the 45-minute sets is a real set. You know, but there aren't that many headlining clubs in New York except for Caroline's. So comics are like, they get really strong, especially within 20 minutes, because you have 20 minutes to like, and like, you know, you're following, you know, the Louis C.K.'s and the Jim Gaffigans and the David Tells and people like that, and the Godfreys and you know, but
this is the nicest cat, by the way.
He's
rubbing me on the microphone, and
he's super sweet.
What's his name?
Frankie
Frankie
the cat. This is Miles the dog. Miles was actually, I rescued him. He was used as bait for pit bull fighting. So he's got like half an ear and scars everywhere.
Gosh.
So I was a little nervous when you came, because sometimes he tends to either bite or nip. But I think he senses your energy, so he likes you.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he's cool with cats. He's got no problems with cats.
Yeah.
Just dogs. He hates dogs.
I love your style too. Like I appreciate it so much, and I laugh so hard. I've seen you like at the Improv like 3-4 times, and you always crack me up.
Oh, thanks, man.
And you said like the New York comedians are more focused on the writing jokes. Here they're kind of like acting, so they can get like a.
Well, yeah. I mean, there are great comics in LA, but I just feel like a lot of times. I mean, New York, you get up 3-4 times a night easily.
Yeah.
I've tried getting up 3 times in LA. It's almost impossible unless it's at the same club. I mean, you can get up twice a night if you really, really hustle, but then like parking and this and that.
Right.
It's just
The driving is way too much.
And New York, I feel like in LA, you're not just a comic. You a lot of times you're a comic and you're a producer, you're an actor, you do voiceovers, you do
Totally.
commercials. In New York, sometimes people do that, but there's also just people that are just comics. You know, they like the old thing in New York is I'll go to LA when like LA, they fly me out there, which is never gonna happen. And it's like, well, all right, good luck, buddy.
Right.
But there's a lot. I mean, it's weird. When I was starting up, there was less stage time everywhere. At first I was doing, the open mics and the bringers. You got to bring 5 people.
Oh, wow.
And
that
was
like the comedy boom, right? Like 12 years ago. It was like
the comedy boom was like in the 80s.
80s?
But it was rough. I mean, you had to you can get up at the Comedy Cellar, but you were up at the 6 o'clock show. You weren't up. You weren't up at the 9 o'clock show.
Was it like handing flyers out and come to see?
Well,
it?
then I started doing comedy at Hamburger Harry's, Gladys's Comedy Room in Midtown, and it was like a step up. You basically had to like earn your way to Bark, which
Right.
was like giving out flyers, and I was really good at like giving out flyers and I used to get like 30, 40 people a night. And also I was in my 20s, and there was always chicks in Midtown, so I would have after hours at my place, and I was just banging tourists left and right. It was
awesome.
pretty good times. But then I got really good at that, but then I was like, well, I was giving half my money away to the owner, and then she wasn't paying the other comics, so I opened up my own club across the street, basically called Joe Franklin's, who was this, and we were paying all the comics. We were doing 2 shows a night.
Yeah,
I was getting up 15 times a week.
That's crazy.
I mean, I was barking, and barking sucks because
barking is when you're like
handing
out
out flyers and stuff. Because people are, I mean, I was in Midtown. I just left college, dropped out of college, became a comic. So I would see. Went to college in New York, so I would see all these girls that I went to college with, or guys, and they're all going to Broadway shows. They're all dressed up,
Right.
And I'm like, "Hey, come to Hamburger Harry's or Joe Franklin's comedy."
Yeah.
It was rough. And people would spit on you, or you get homeless people that would harass you, or you had the Black Israelites would start chanting around you, and it was a fucking zoo. But business boomed up real quick because all of a sudden tourists would, especially Mondays, there was no Broadway, it was packed. So then when I started, there was Gladys's, and then there was Joe Franklin's, and then the Ha Comedy Club opened up, and then all of a sudden Broadway Comedy Club opened up in Midtown, and then there was 4 clubs. Before you know it, there was like 8, 9, 10 clubs just in Midtown alone.
And you could just walk down the street and
get harassed by thousands of comedians and comics were like whores. I mean, we had different blocks. Like if you worked at Ha, you could only work that block. If you worked at Joe Frank, it was like pimps basically.
Yeah.
Comedy clubs were pimps.
Hamburger Harry walked over to somebody else.
I remember I almost got in a fight with a comedian because I had stepped in front of him while barking, not even intentionally, or a girl, and then she went and told her boyfriend, who came and wanted to fight me.
Oh my God.
Because I had taken up a customer. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. How'd you open up your own comedy club? That's such a great idea.
Well, it was not as good as it sounds. I only basically collected the cover for the back of the room in an existing restaurant, but and then I was okay. I mean, to me, like, I remember the first time I made $70 and I thought I was rich.
Yeah.
I was like so happy that I couldn't believe I made any money doing comedy, but a lot of good comics came from barking. I mean, I remember like right before me.
Wasn't Galifianakis Hamburger Harry's?
It's Galifianakis. Jim Gaffigan was barking. Wow. It was crazy. It was and then at one point we like Melissa Rauch, actually, who's now on Big Bang Theory. She was real short, so I never made her bark. I always had made her like work the money.
Yeah.
But then sometimes I would bark and have the people. I'd be like, "Hey, go down the block to the comedy club," and tourists would get very distrustful because they were like, wait a minute, what's down the block? Are we gonna get robbed?
It's like that scene from Goodfellas when
Yeah.
De Niro's like, keep going, keep going.
Exactly. So I had these little cute girls walk
Oh,
with them.
man.
So they were the walkers.
Wow.
So we had barkers, we had walkers. But then it got real tough when it was like freezing or 10 below or 20 below, and you can't even feel your face, and you're giving
Right.
out flyers for comedy. And it really made me as a strong comic, and also think about how much I like wanted it.
Totally.
I think a lot of these comedians don't understand how easy they have it now. I hate to say it like when I was your age, but I mean, really, it was like, it was tough.
Yeah. No, totally. No, I go to like an open mic and I'm like, wow, there's already people here. Great.
Hey,
Like, this
yeah.
is so cool.
Exactly.
You just mentioned like Jim Gaffigan. I heard your story where you play basketball with like Patrice O'Neal and Jim Norton and like all those great guys. Like that's such a
Oh, 3 o'clock in the morning, it was like me, Kevin Hart.
no way.
He was amazing at
Really?
basketball. I had to guard him, and I was in my 20s. I could sort of keep up, but I couldn't really keep up. And then Patrice would play. He was really good too, surprisingly athletic
Yeah.
for a big guy. I mean, you couldn't guard him. And then Colin Quinn would play. He was a good
Oh,
basketball
sweet,
player. And then who else? It was like a bunch of Robert Kelly, Pete Corielli. He was great.
Oh, yeah,
He
yeah.
great at basketball.
That's so funny that all these comedians, like great comedians, are also great basketball players.
Yeah.
Were you guys playing at Caroline's or like, and then just like go over to like a?
The Comedy Cellar, they would
Comedy
play at,
Cellar,
yeah.
okay.
Well, I find a lot of comedians are like it's a very competitive field, and I think athletics are very competitive as well. So sometimes it's kind of easy to see the crossover.
Yeah, it plays like hand in hand.
Yeah.
And you're a wrestling coach right now too, right?
Yeah, I wrestled in high school, a little bit in college. I was really into it growing up, and came out here. I was like looking through Craigslist for jobs. I was like, wrestling coach, I could do that. And
Yeah.
then I'm doing it for 11 years.
Wow,
I
that's
love
so
it.
amazing.
I started a program for the high school. Got a great bunch of kids. A couple of my kids got scholarships to like a really good, prestigious prep school
Wow.
from high school. So
That's
it's a lot of
amazing.
fun. It keeps me young. you
Yeah.
know?
And you said you're doing a documentary on it now?
No, I'm actually, I wrote a script, like a funny comedy movie.
Oh, cool.
So I'm doing an Indiegogo campaign and trying to get people to donate, which is like, it's basically barking on the internet
Yeah.
for money. But
That's awesome.
But
What's
yeah.
it? Is it going to be about like?
it's like the Bad News Bears of wrestling.
Sweet.
There's never been a wrestling comedy like that before.
Yeah, totally.
It's sort of a kids movie, but not really. I think adults find it funny too. So I'm excited for that.
That's so great. Do any of your students, like, when they turn 18, go to the comedy club and be like,
They do it.
my
That's-
coach was a great comedian too?
They do, or like it's funny. Like sometimes the parents come,
Oh, no.
which I'm always a little like, they don't know this side of me.
Right.
But a lot of times it's the cool parents.
Nice.
And then sometimes on the internet I'll be like, don't curse. Like, well, you curse on YouTube. I'm like, oh. Or I'll be like, do 20 push-ups. I'll be like the Asian guy in porn, or like give me like the second half of my joke. I'm like, come on, man.
They're like tagging your
Yeah,
jokes.
yeah. I was like, dude, this is ridiculous.
That's so funny.
It's
That's
funny
so-
though. Sometimes the kids they crack me up. I mean, like one time I was like, I try to be funny and like, but I'm like old man funny. Like I'll be like, all right, guys, the winner of this match, gets a date with Miley Cyrus. And then one kid was like, I'm out, and pinned himself. I was like, that's way funnier than my joke.
Yeah. That's so great. Oh my gosh. I saw a couple of other videos that you had where you're confronted with like hecklers and you just
Yeah.
you handle it so like amazing.
Oh, thanks, man.
And then there's the one where it was like at a wedding.
Yeah, that was crazy. That one kind of went viral. Like I got hired like to play a minister at a wedding and start roasting everybody.
Oh, right.
And then but they didn't tell anybody that I was really a comedian, or they didn't give me any information on anybody. So I'm just roasting people on what I see.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I had any time to prepare. And so I started making fun of this one guy, and he got up and like, charged me, and then like left. And he looked like I was like an '80s rocker guy. So
He was
I'm
like in all white, like
yeah,
white
so
shoes.
I'm
and
like,
everything.
don't stop believing after he pushed me. But the funny part of that video is only 3 minutes long. It was really 45-minute set I had to do.
Yeah.
So I had to do 40 minutes after that.
Oh my!
And
After the guy getting
After the
up.
guy, yeah, it was already awkward.
How do you win back? It's not even a room. I guess it's like a
no,
outdoor
well,
wedding.
there were people that were like a lot of people had their heads in their like.
And nobody's in
laughing.
on it, right?
What? Nobody's in on it except for the bride and groom. A lot of times people were laughing, but they were laughing with their head down, like in the table, cracking up. I was getting those kind of laughs.
Yeah.
So, I knew I was doing okay, but then the mother started yelling at me. The grandmother started yelling at me, going, "We don't want to hear your dirty jokes." So it got even more awkward. But But it was funny. It was just funny.
What a great gig.
Oh,
That's
hell,
so
what a
cool.
hell gig. And then I had to wait an hour to get paid.
Oh.
So I'm waiting around. People were like, do my wedding, and the guy's pacing around back and forth. I'm like, I'm going to have to fight this guy.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Oh my gosh. Do you have any other crazy stories from just?
So many, man. I remember doing the Montreal callback. I had 4 callbacks, 4 years in a row. I kill it. My manager's like, you're going to Montreal. And then they call me like, hey, we want to see you the next day. I'm like, you saw me yesterday. We want to see you in front of a different crowd at the Improv. I'm like, I go to the Improv. I'm up second, right? There's nobody there except for a bus full of old ladies that were on a way to go on a gambling trip.
Oh yeah.
And the first guy doesn't show up.
Oh.
So now I'm up first. The host bombs. So I go up there, and I had a killer show the night before.
Right.
So I'm like, oh, I like older ladies. I was going to do a Who's Your Grandson, kind of a hokey joke. But I figure I'd win the crowd. The lady goes like, I'm not old. Takes a menu, throws it at my head, hits me point blank in the face with a menu, in the forehead. Everyone can't believe it.
Yeah.
It must have been Nolan Ryan's grandmother because she had the most perfect name. And then that was the end of that. I tried to go back to jokes. It was just, it was just ridiculous.
That's so crazy.
That was bad. I've done baby showers before.
Really?
Biker bars. I mean, just.
Wow. It's like Blues Brothers with the biker
Yeah,
bars.
absolutely. I've had I remember doing a show, there was 4 fights during the show.
Jeez.
Every time someone would heckle, a biker guy would get up and knock that guy out.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
I had one where in the middle of it, everybody just ran out into the street because there was 2 girls fighting. The whole place just left, even the bartender.
I did a show one time. It was brought to you by the Cancer Society.
Oh.
They saw a video, a college of all these kids who had terminal cancer, and then at the end, they're every kid in this video died. And then as everyone's crying, time for the comedy.
Oh no! And now here he is.
This is brutal.
You're a comedian.
Yeah.
Wow.
I did a show last week. It was the game 6 of the Clippers, and they're playing the game to the right of me.
Yeah.
And the entire crowd's looking at the game while I'm on stage. There's so
really,
many.
yeah. But you were the last stand-up comedian on the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That was crazy. I found out the day of. I was like,
I saw it too. I remember I was watching all the Tonight Shows that period.
Thanks.
And it was really great. Yeah.
I found out that day. They called me up to can you be here an hour and do a set? So I'm
Wow.
like, sure. I literally.
Did they know you from before? Were you
Yeah, I did it. It was my second time on the show,
Okay.
and I was on a waiting. I was on a waiting list, but what happened was they wanted to do a Michael Jackson song, and they couldn't clear the estate song or something with the estate, so I had to go buy a pair of jeans on the way to the show, and my dad brought me a shirt because I didn't have a clean shirt.
Yeah.
And then they didn't approve any of my jokes. Normally they run through all your jokes, but they were going off the air in a week, so everyone was kind of checked out.
And they tape it 4? So what time are they clearing your jokes?
They didn't clear them all. I didn't have to run my jokes by anybody.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm I don't even know if these jokes are clean enough to do on television.
Yeah.
I really don't know. So my first joke got beeped. They actually dropped. I said I like Asian girls. That's why I hang out at traffic school.
Yeah.
And they dropped the word Asian because that was offensive to Asians. It's
Oh.
okay to offend all women, just not Asian
Right.
women. It's just crazy.
So it's just punchline.
Yeah, you just hear I like girls. That's why I hang out at traffic school.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. To bleep that out.
And it gets a big laugh. People are
Yeah.
wow, that's an easy crowd, man.
Wow. Yeah, everybody's dying. That's so cool. Was Jay really cool? I heard he talks to all the
Jay's
comics.
super nice guy. Could not have been nicer.
Yeah.
Yeah, real nice guy.
That's so cool. What's that experience like to play? Because I've been in that theater and it's pretty big too.
Yeah, I mean,
Surprisingly.
the thing about that kind of TV, even Jay told me, he's like, listen, this is the easiest set you'll ever do. If you mess up a joke, don't worry, we'll do it again.
Okay.
He's like, I watched some of your stuff on Last Comic Standing. It just goes joke, joke, joke. This, take your time. He goes, if you pause, they'll clap.
Yeah.
So I like that. You can really milk you can get a plus rack on every joke if you really want to.
Yeah.
You wish you don't want to, but
Right.
it's a pretty.
They're just ready to laugh.
Yeah, I know there's been a couple comics that have bombed on Tonight Show, but it's pretty hard. It's a lot easier to bomb, when they used to film, when they filmed Jimmy Kimmel, for example. They used to have comedians bomb all the time on Kimmel because it's on Hollywood Boulevard. So they would get the crowd that day. You want to go see Jimmy Kimmel?
Oh, that's right.
So
yeah.
then it's not exactly people you don't know who you're gonna get in the crowd.
Right.
Whereas some people actually have tickets to Kimmel and stuff, but a lot of times people were just walking in. This is especially when it used to be on After.
Yeah. And it's Hollywood Boulevard.
Yeah,
For those who don't know.
Right.
Crazy people.
So Leno, it's different because you have to get into a car, go
It's
to
an
Burbank
event.
Studios, an
Yeah.
event. You know, it's funny though. It's funny the way they book it. Like even like Conan now, which is I love Conan, but they book a lot of alternative comics on Conan, and you know the issue that I think is that a lot of times comics don't do that well because it's not an alternative crowd.
Right.
It's not like
they're tourists.
Yeah, it's not like they take the people from Largo and take them to
Plant
Conan.
them.
There'll be a couple people that support their friends and stuff,
Right.
but a lot of times it's just, oh, who wants to go? We're going to L.A. It's the couple from Minnesota.
Totally, yeah.
So that's why sometimes these comics that are really funny in alt rooms don't do that well because it's not like they're not funny, but it's just the audience is different.
Right.
You know.
I never realized that. I've been watching like some of my favorite comics. I'm like, do these guys not get this? This is
Yeah,
like the
no.
hottest comic in LA. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, because they're like, the comic to us also, you have to, me and you know comics, pretty well. But if, you're Jim Bob and you work at a Pepsi-Cola, dispensary all day or whatever,
Right.
and you don't really know who these guys
Exactly,
are.
yeah. The last comic they know is like Rodney. Or like,
Yeah, right. They'll know, yeah, right. They know, Jeff Foxworthy.
Exactly,
They get it right.
And you were also on Last Comic Standing too.
Yeah.
You just mentioned, and what was that like? How
That was a tough experience. It was a great experience, but tough experience because
how far did you go along?
I
with
got to the final 8.
Oh, sweet.
Which was crazy.
Which year was this?
It was season 6. Eliza Schlesinger won my year.
Oh, okay.
Because I auditioned 2 years prior to that and didn't get it. And then the year before, I had a great set. And what they were doing was they were taking 50 people to go to Vegas the next round, But then so they tell you made it. They have the judge. Everyone tells you how great you are,
Right.
and you had the best set of the night or one of the best sets. And then we go in the back room. They're like, just because we advance you doesn't mean that you actually make it. They're like,
Oh, wow.
what do you mean? They're like, well, we have to. The show's still. And that was all they told you. So then I got a phone call saying I'm off the show. It was actually right before Anaka. Yeah, so like they pick 3 guys with blonde hair.
They tell you before you even they don't. So you don't, when you hear it on the air, that's not when you heard it.
No, that's not when you heard it.
Wow.
And they edited me out of the whole show. So even though I had gone through 2 rounds, they tipped me. I called my parents. And
Yeah.
they filmed me calling me my parents, and that's how they were doing it. So there were a couple times like people had made it to that round, and then they just told them they were off. And I was one of those people. So then
weird.
the next season, I asked to audition. They're like, well, they don't want to see you. I go, but how come last year I was number 51 out of 50 or whatever, or 31 out of 30.
Yeah.
Sorry, can't get an audition, right? I couldn't get an audition. So then I went to go pitch a show to NBC, the Kamikaze Comedy Show, and they were like, hey, why don't you audition for Last Comic Standing? And I go, because you won't let me. And they go, oh, well, here's the number to call. So I called, they're like, you can't audition in LA. They're like, but you can audition in Arizona. So I go to Arizona on my own dime, drive to Arizona, get there, and then I like make it.
Yeah.
I go, you're going to Vegas. Then they call me up again 2 weeks later. I said, you're off the show again.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So I
Jesus.
said, you guys can't do this to me. They're like, sorry, and it's always not my call. It's nobody's call.
Right.
So I called up a bunch of producers, like fucking cursed them out. I was ready to, at that point, quit comedy. Like my manager at the time didn't help me out, and I just was like, what the fuck? What am I doing?
Why do they do
it
that?
keeps happening,
Yeah.
right? So then I got a phone call. I knew some people. I was kind of working on the inside a little bit, but I got a phone call saying, Adam, we're giving you, but you're back on the show, but you have to leave for Vegas tomorrow.
Jeez.
So in like 2 weeks, I had not left my house. I was fucking depressed.
Yeah.
Now I got to get a set together to go to Vegas, right? So I go to Vegas, and now I'm like, you know what? I think I'm a pretty nice person. Like I spend a lot of time with charity. I work with kids. I try to be a good person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, I'm sure there are some girls out there that say I fucked them and didn't call them or something. There are probably some things, people that I've probably done some stuff to along the lines in my life. They probably, but for the most part, I would say people know that, hey, I'm a good guy. I try to actually.
Nobody deserves. Hey, come on, go. Okay, you're out.
Yeah, I
Come
mean,
in,
yeah.
come
For the
out.
most part, I try to be an actual good person. you know,
They shouldn't do
things
that,
happen.
yeah.
So then I go, you know what? I'm going to, in my head, this good guy persona that I'm trying to emulate on TV
Right.
is not really working for me. So maybe I'll just be a dick. I'll just be like the bad guy.
Yeah.
So I go to Vegas and I'm like, you know what? I'll be the bad guy. So I'm like, I'm the best comic here. Nobody can beat me. I deserve to win.
Yeah.
I'm better than everyone in this room. Just being a total fucking
Right.
figuring. So then I have a great set. And Richard Belzer tells me how funny I am, and Steve Sharippa, they were the judges. They're like, you know, you joke. But to me, it doesn't mean anything because they could edit this. This happened last time.
Right.
I had good sets.
Yeah.
So they took me off so then I like made it. I actually made it. But now I'm like, you know what? Fuck. Now everyone's going to think I'm a fucking asshole. because now the whole country, because I'm telling everyone I'm the greatest comic in the world, you
These
know.
are little cutaway shots too, right?
Yeah, you know, and literally they're interviewing me going, you know, how do you feel? And go, great. I mean, I've been fucked over a lot in this business. By who? By this show. Like I was actually saying that in the interview.
Yeah.
You know? Like I was being as honest as I possibly could.
That's amazing.
So, but then I watched it. Like they just said I've been fucked over a lot in this business. Right?
And then
So then now I'm living in a house with all these comedians, and I at this point I was doing comedy like 8-9 years, but the comics that were in the house were like 2 years.
Oh, wow.
You know, so I was like, I could tell they didn't want to go against me, honestly, but I was like, fuck, I don't want to be the biggest asshole on television anymore. So every time they interviewed me, I would say, yeah, I work with kids who have cancer. I coach a wrestling team. My mother left when I was 3. No
Yeah.
matter what the question was, I would somehow dwindle it back to like, here's why I'm a good guy.
Right.
They stopped interviewing me. They just I could tell that I was getting the least amount of screen time as everybody. Number one, the producers didn't like me from the get-go. They didn't want me on the show as well. But then every time we would do like a challenge, and then they took comedy out of the equation when I was on the show. I mean, literally, I didn't do stand-up for a month.
Jeez.
What I was doing was they would have these like
activities.
There were like these challenges. The first challenge was make props in Home Depot with Carrot Top and perform a comedy act using props. The second one was having a Yo Mama contest in a boxing ring and having Jamie Kennedy judge it. And the third challenge was let's read children's stories to the girls next door that we make up, the Playmates.
Playmates.
The Playmates.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know what this has to... So finally they were like...
It's a variety
Finally
show
they're
now.
like, yeah. And of course everyone... These 2-year comics are looking great because this is...
Right.
Now the comedy's out of the
Don't have to rely on
equation.
their, like,
Yeah,
material
now
at all.
there's no more material involved.
Yeah.
It's improv games, you know? So then they would like... They asked me, like, finally they're like, okay, you're all performing. And I'm like, yes. That's
Finally.
why I came here on the show to do blah, blah, blah. I'm watching the show and they go, you're all performing. And they cut to an interview of me going, God damn it. They took a totally different fucking thing.
Right. From like a while ago.
Yeah, that had nothing to do. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Jeez.
So,
They're
and
just
then
creating drama.
oh,
Like, for no
and
reason.
it's completely not what I said.
Yeah.
Like 100% different. So then it was,
How about the comics? Were you guys just like, this is kind of crazy that we're
you know what
doing
it
all
was?
this
I mean,
stuff?
like some of the comics that were like the veterans, like me, Louis Ramey, so Sean Cullen doing it for like, I feel like we were really appreciative of even just the opportunity, you know. I felt like some of the newer comics, like Jeff and Eliza, you know, they've been doing it for like 3 years. They didn't realize how lucky they were
To be
you
there,
know,
right.
be doing it, you know. And Eliza, I thought at the time was not the strongest comic, and people kept picking her to go against. But the people that were picking her were getting beat because they weren't the strongest either. But then because she was on every week, like she got the most screen time, and then they had never had a girl win.
Right.
So it was like, I wouldn't say it was rigged, but it was definitely like, you know,
It had nothing to do with actually stand-up comedy.
and also like some of the stuff was like, annoying because I would do these, like they would edit sets, like so they you know they would take
Without
up.
permission?
Well, yeah, they would like the set, like I would do a 5-minute set and they would
Right.
show 2.5 minutes.
Oh, God.
And
yeah.
so my last set was great because I just took whatever that they didn't use and fucking did it again, you
Yeah.
know. But I had known before my last set that I was going to get kicked off, but right before it, so I just went out and just fucking I crushed it. I honestly had a really good set because I was like, fuck this, I'm
Right.
going out. you know, and then somebody called me. They're like, dude, it was, and the crowd was booing when I got eliminated. And then people were like, well, if Adam would have done this set, he wouldn't have been eliminated. Well, if they would have aired that set, I did do that set. They didn't fucking air those jokes. That's why I was able to do it.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, and then like, even the challenges, like even in the Yo Mama contest, I did 3 really good Yo Mama jokes. They only showed 1. That was the weakest one. It was like stuff like that would drive me crazy.
Right.
But look, since Last Comic Standing, before that I was like featuring, co-headlining at best. I literally had maybe $200 in my account. I mean, I was living for the first 8 years in my overdraft. I remember having negative $980 in my account, and they wouldn't let me take out $20 from the account, even though my overdraft was like $1,000.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, literally, I remember they would take us to graveyards, and that's where they would announce who we're picking in a fucking graveyard on Last Comic Standing, and Bill Bellamy would come up as like a ghost. It was like so ridiculous. But I remember like thinking that I just want to be on the next show because I need that like $1,800 that I was getting for the show.
Right.
Because like checks were bouncing as I was on the show. Like I'm like, I don't think I paid my cable bill this month. Yeah. So, you know,
it was the last year worst.
Yeah. So a lot of my work. So that was great. I mean, since then I was headlining.
Right.
I did a year headlining Funny Bones and Improvs. I did like 50 colleges. You know, got me out of some holes. I was in some debt. So I was super happy. I mean, I came in 6th. The top 5 went on tour. You know,
yeah.
It was just like shit like that was like, ugh. But you know, I don't think they wanted me on that show to begin with. They really didn't like my edgy, you know, kind of crude humor a little bit. And, you know, so, but this is what it is. I was really happy that like the opportunities that it like gave me. So would I do it again? Sure. You know?
Yeah. I wish there was just a show that was like just stand up, like, you know, nothing else.
Yeah.
Like Gotham Live is great, I think, but like, you know, I like Comics Unleashed too. But like, there's some things where it's just like they're interfering so much.
Oh yeah,
they don't know how it works.
I'm really like a fucking the girls next door. Like,
right.
I'm like reading a children's book, and this is evaluating my comedy, and then I went for
canceled like a month.
And
later.
I went first to everything. Like every challenge I went first, and then I accused them of like cheating, and the producers hated me because I was like, this thing is fixed. It's like I definitely probably. I'm on anti-anxiety pills. Like I take Celexa, small doses, like 5 a day. I went off my pills for that whole 2 months, thinking I'd be funnier on
right,
which is a bad idea. I should never went off my medication because I think I was a little bit more irate than I should have, or more irritable, not irate, irritable.
Well, I love your jokes, and some of my favorite comics are one-liner guys, and I always am amazed because like, how do you memorize all these jokes and the orders, especially when you do 2-3 sets a night?
It's hard sometimes. Like even when I'm hosting, I'll like, did I use that joke last show or this show?
Do you know the jokes so well that like on stage you're just like, all right, I'm going to transition to this and that? Or...
Yeah, but I've done the same jokes twice before. I hate to say it. It's always fucking shitty too.
And then everybody's quiet. They're like, oh.
Like, there's one person's laughing twice, and you're like, it's just like fuck. But you know, it's to me, it's like, you know, like when I'm acting, it's hard acting because, you know, a lot of times you have to be word perfect. That's where I like comedy, because as long as I know what I'm trying to say, I could sort of say it a different way, you know.
And do you do that like when you're like testing out the jokes? Do you kind of change them every time?
Sometimes, I mean, there's like sometimes like.
I'm just curious to learn like how to write jokes.
Depends. I mean, like I know Chris Rock, when he does jokes, he does it with like 0 effort on new stuff. Because if it gets a laugh with 0 effort, it'll really get a laugh.
Yeah, I heard he just straight reads from like a notepad.
And you know, unfortunately, like you don't have that luxury, you know. I'll just show up in a comedy club and just read, you know. But
this guy does this all the time.
But a lot of times, like, I like to have a joke that's strong enough on paper where my head could be somewhere else and it'll still get a laugh.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, as much as you want to be in the moment every single time, I mean, there are times you know you get a phone call, you get dumped right before you go on stage, or you find out you didn't get an audition, or you find out something happened, you get into a car accident on the way to the gig. I mean, there's always shit that happens where sometimes it just becomes a job, you know.
Right.
And when that happens, you have to have material strong enough to rely on, where it doesn't always rely on your personality, because sometimes your personality is not going to be very good.
It's not going to be there. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, totally. Yeah, I see some comedians where I'm like, Was that really funny? Like if I typed it out, like, but they like sell it so like well, and those
Some
are great
comics
too.
Some comics are really likable, and they get away with that, and it's cool. It's just sometimes I don't really like. I'm a big fan of really good writing.
Yeah, totally. Me too.
And some comics are great writers, but they're just not likable, and it takes them. It's much harder for them because you're like, man, that joke's hilarious. This crowd's not laughing. Fuck.
Right.
This happened to me before. The crowd didn't like me because I did some kind of crowd work that went too far, and then they're not going to give me the next couple jokes. You know?
How do you win those rooms back? Sometimes it's just like, do you just really go back to material, or kind of improv in the moment?
I mean, I'm 15, 16 years in.
Yeah.
So, I'm able to kind of. It's like comedy's like boxing. If you ever watched a Bernard Hopkins fight, like he was like 45 and he was still fighting, and it wasn't because it was like amazing power, but he was just such a craftsman of the game. A really good. I mean, he was really good at stepping on people's toes and hitting them, or holding their elbow down, or coming in with his head, or he just had these, or punching on the break. And
you just learn some
same
techniques.
with comedy, you learn tricks.
Yeah.
There's so many tricks out there. And like I've seen comics kill with all tricks. And you're like, oh, come on. Guy goes up there, give it up for the troops, or give it up for the DJ,
right.
Or there's some hot ladies here.
Something nobody can deny.
Yeah, hot ladies here, and you're like, man, fucking weed should be legal. I mean, it just and he's killing. You got applause break,
Preaching to the choir.
but you're just like, come on, man. Like this is, the whole thing of like, or they'll be like. Yeah, and the punchline will be, and that guy right there, the punchline will be that guy, I mean, you see it all the time.
Right.
And it's okay. Or you see a comic that's like, I like to have get to a joke and move on. But there are a lot of comics out there that are doing really well, that they get to a joke, then they act out the joke, and then they throw in a sound effect, or they throw in some kind of a gay reference. I mean, Dane Cook was so good at that, like
exploring a topic, kind of. Or?
Of just dragging a joke out.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, to the point where he could do 2 hours of material and 5 jokes.
Right. Yeah.
And you're just like, damn. That's. I mean, more power to him. He's selling, 2 hours of material. He's selling more albums.
Right.
But you're like, okay. He's this is not. I'm oversimplifying him. He's a great comic, and he's just an example of like a guy that would like say a topic, throw an 80s reference in,
right,
act it out, do a gay voice, do a female voice,
and get laughs off all those things.
Say a certain word a certain way, lean a certain way.
Oh yeah.
Yell, repeat, call back, bring everyone in, and he's getting like.
And now it's time for joke number 2.
Yeah, and you're just like. And the crowd's eating it up.
Yeah. Who are some of your influences when you were growing up? And I mean, you started so young.
Definitely Rodney.
Yeah.
Jim Norton is hilarious. Godfrey.
Oh yeah.
Very underrated comic. I mean,
he was just here all last week. I saw him. He's so great.
I mean, he crushes. Corey Holcomb makes me laugh hard. I mean, I could definitely watch a Doug Stanhope bit, and I could definitely Mitch Hedberg. I mean. Chris Rock. There's just so many good comics out there. I mean, there's a lot of really good comics out there. Daniel Tosh. I think people forget how funny of a comic he was because it was Tosh.0, which is also really funny. But his stand-up comedy was genius. And that's the thing. It's like, bad comedy sometimes could be like you're getting mad at the crowd, you're getting frustrated, whatever. But good comedy is just nothing like it. I mean, Louis C.K. obviously is great. I mean, one of the best.
Totally, yeah.
Louis C.K. is so great because, he speaks in punchlines, and he just could take. You feel like you can relate to him,
right?
And he says the most. He says the most, not fucked up things, but the most outlandish things. But he describes it in a way where you're like, that makes you can see, exactly where he's coming from,
right?
And
his SNL monologue, did you see it?
Yeah, it was great.
So great.
I wasn't offended by that. It was
no.
You know, I mean,
That's
it's
another
funny.
tourist audience too, I think. But I think when he said like I love what was it, Mounds bars?
Yeah.
He's like it's not like worth going to jail for. Like that's true. Yeah, you can relate to that. You're like I love Mounds bars. I'm not gonna-
He's so funny. I mean, he's such a good comic. He's
He related child molestation to eating a candy bar.
Yeah, of
Like,
course.
That's
Hey.
amazing.
it's just you like Bill Burr. I mean, you watch
Oh,
it.
yeah.
It's almost like sometimes it's hard to watch these guys because you're just like, man, you just realize how far you have to go.
Right.
You know, it's hard. It's frustrating because you're like, I've done this 16 years, but look how far along these guys are. You know. But it's humbling sometimes watching these guys.
Yeah,
You
totally.
know, which is cool.
I don't want to like ruin your joke, but my favorite joke that you do is, do you ever call your ex-girlfriend on her birthday to ruin her?
Yeah. Oh, thanks, man. Now on my birthday, I have all these ex-girlfriends calling me too. It's not even the joke. I got like my birthday was yesterday. I got like 10 girls like, "Happy birthday!" I'm like, "You fucker."
That's so funny.
I'm like, I see what you did there.
Yeah. I was wondering, are you working on like you said you're working on a movie. I mean, are you done? And
Yeah, I wrote a script about a wrestling coach. So I'm working on that. I also wrote I'm working on a TV show. I'm working on.
oh, cool. What kind of show is it?
I don't want to talk about it yet
Oh,
until
okay.
it happens. But
Did you do the Data Comedian?
Yeah, I did that show.
Did you write that one?
No.
Or-
I
I saw the episode of you.
Oh,
on it.
I got in trouble for that one.
What happened?
Well, you know what it was? I didn't even really want to do it.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I don't want to be on this show. I hate contest shows, you know.
It was a pretty funny idea.
And then so I was like,
on
all right, I'll go
paper.
on. And then they were like, so then these girls were cute. They're cool girls.
Right.
But I was like, all right, I'll just make a mockery of this whole show. That'll be funny. you
Right.
know? So I started taking my Adderall and like snorting it, like on the first date, and literally like the people were just in shock, you know. And then I started saying like, so then I was like, look, I'm not saying you're not as hot as these girls, but you're not as hot as these girls. I was just being I was being funny, and I don't know why I was just in a mood that day,
Yeah.
but I was just like, I was being really funny, and then like. I was like, we should all make out. I was just I was having fun with it. I'm still friends with the girls though. They're actually
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah. Then the girl during the break told me she had a boyfriend, right?
Oh.
So
I was
then,
like, why were we even?
so then they asked me, they're like, well, why are you picking this girl? I'm like, because during the commercial break, she told me she had a boyfriend. And they're like, cut. You look, this is a TV show. I'm like, but that'll be really funny if you like. No, you can't do that. I'm like, so that was the kind of stuff I
That's
was
so
doing.
great. There's a one line too, like you're making the pizza, I think,
Yeah.
and just something like bending over.
Oh yeah, I was like, I want to eat your pie. I was
Yeah.
just being totally inappropriate. But that's how a comedian was. I was like depressed during the show.
Right.
I was just having fun. I was actually making them all laugh. And I'm still friends with them.
That's so awesome.
They were cool chicks. They actually were cool. I was like, but yeah, they were like, why'd you pick her? I'm like, because she said she had a boyfriend.
Cut.
yeah. They kept cutting me.
That's so great. So your movie and doing a TV show soon too.
TV
and-
show. I work with Fox Sports. I got a podcast called
cool.
MMA Roasted. I work with the UFC a lot, and I wrote the MMA awards the last 5 years, and I do a lot of MMA stuff, which is great.
Yeah.
You know, and then just doing a comedy. I'm going to Seychelles Island next week to do comedy for the Sheik and a Prince. And then
Oh my gosh.
So that should
How
be
do you
fun.
how do you develop material knowing that? Do they just say?
They said no jokes about like Islam.
Right.
Muslims, and then I guess he has like 10 naked girls with him, and I can't hit on them. It's like that's
Don't even acknowledge the
yeah,
10 naked girls.
yeah. I don't want to get beheaded because I was like ready to pass at the Sheik's woman.
Right.
So
That's so great. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
yeah,
man.
thanks for being.
I really
thank
appreciate
you,
it.
man. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Anytime.